Hello there. I'm Squire Callahan Ridgeborn, almost a battle master, and tonight I'm joined by a special guest, Sir Manama Proster, Songkeeper. Manama, do you want to introduce yourself at all?
Sure. My name is Manama. I am currently residing in Indiana, and I am a battle knight of the Rising Winds, as well as other various things that I've done over my career. So, um, I've been playing for about 25 years, 26 years going on.
Oh, wow.
I actually don't remember exactly when I started. I just know that there's like a definitive start date around 1989. So, um,
That's a
you know,
long career. Where
yes.
where did you start if you're not from Indiana originally?
Well, I am from Indiana originally.
Okay.
I'm doing full circles here. I started in Valparaiso, Indiana, which is currently where Crusaders Cove is. Well, now called Port Wooders Night, but my
Hmm.
original park, the park was called Crusaders Cove at the time. But then I joined the Navy, so then I ended up going to the East Coast, and I was out there for a while in Crystal Groves and Golden Vale, in the Virginia area. And then
Okay.
eventually, I got a degree at Purdue, moved back to Indiana. Then I moved to Michigan, then moved back to Indiana. So I moved back to the Midwest, but I'm from Indiana originally.
Okay. Cool. Are all of your so for those of you at home who don't know Manama, Manama is one of the rare five belted knights. He's got all five of them. He collected them all. He's the Pokemon master. Did all five of your belts come from the Rising Winds, or did some of them come from elsewhere?
Yes, they did. About a third of my awards though came from Crystal Groves,
Okay,
in Golden Vale. So
cool. Where's your home park currently?
home park is Griffin's Perch in Indianapolis. It's kind of like the closest large park. I'm in Lafayette, Indiana currently. There was a park here a long time ago when I was
Mm,
first here in Lafayette, but it kind of died, and I really haven't had the time to maybe try to start something back up again. And I have three parks within an hour of me, so I figured going to those and supporting those would be a good idea right now.
cool. So can you tell us a little bit about your Battle Master journey? How did you earn your Battle Master?
Do you want me to start from like the beginning, or
Sure.
like
I mean, I've
a
got plenty of time,
motivation?
and uh, walk us through the journey.
So, Battle Master is obviously a much newer award. My motivation in Amtgard, especially joining when I first joined, was always to play full class battle gaming. I
Hmm.
loved the casting classes. I actually like the normal classes too, like the medical classes, but I liked the interplay between the thing that the LARP combat in Amtgard offered. So it was the thing that I focused on for a long time and just really just played to get better, min maxing, spell lists, everything that you can possibly imagine, even up until we started talking about Battle Master a little bit more seriously as an award possibly coming out. I was one of the grandfathered in people though when Battle Master did come out,
Mm.
so they came out and literally within 4 months I had the award. But part of that was all we have a Bridge Wars event here in the Rising Winds that we run all the time, which is a very competitive, usually like 8 to 15 people teams. I've been on several different teams that have won that event. When I was in the Crystal Groves in Golden Vale, we would run a lot of those, like some other events too, full class events, and then I would also do very well in those as well. So it's just, but my motivation for those was always like, hey, I just really like playing this game and want to do very well at it. It's something that I wanted to be known for too. So, and I think
Hmm.
at this point it's been pretty successful, and I still really enjoy. I mean, I just played in Bridge Wars this last November. I had a blast. Our team got second place, and I thought it was an amazing event. And I really liked playing. So I always like playing the game, and I'm going to continue playing the game. So
Awesome. Yeah, Bridge Wars was a blast this year. I had a great time out there. Um, Bridge Wars is one of those unique events that just hits different because it's a great event. If you've never been to Bridge Wars, I highly recommend it.
yes.
In your opinion, what is the difference between a battle master and just a good fighter, someone that's just generically good at the game but not a battle master? What's that line there for you?
I think it really comes down to like a little bit more versatility and strategy play, because you can only be like so good at fighting and so good at casting before your more macro play has to really be the thing that really sets you forward. Like you are pushing objectives, or you're helping your team in such a way that they're overcoming adversary, or like you almost clutch the win because of your strategy and trying to like fix what the problems with your team are.
Mm-hmm.
Those types of decisions really start to add up over time, especially if you do them more and more often. And that really was what starts showing, I think, the more mastery than just being really good at like one class or really good at two classes or just really good at playing in general. Um, like the more macro thinking about like how do I approach combat, and then how do I, because teamwork is a lot to do with it. You can be an all-star player, but you look way better when your team is also doing well,
Right.
right? So the more often you can cause that to happen, where your team shines as well, you're also gonna be able to showcase yourself a lot better too.
Yeah. I know that this wasn't on the questions list I originally gave you, but I'll throw you a curveball. Um, with that thought there between the difference between a good fighter and a battle master, do you think it was a mistake to tie those high level orders of battle and battle master to Paragon Hood then?
So they tried not to. If you read the original manifesto from when I say manifesto, but the original like guidelines from the awards
Mm-hmm.
recommendation committee, um, it was supposed to be used as just a guideline. You're
Right.
not supposed to be guaranteed to get an order of battle when you get a paragon, especially since paragons are treated differently in different kingdoms.
Mm-hmm.
Some kingdoms, like 50% or more, is role play and how you look, how you present the class. So how does that translate to orders of battle? It's going to be up to
Mm-hmm.
your obviously your kingdom. Our kingdom definitely takes the more combat approach to it. There are definitely some considerations for looks and things like that, but if you're really good at the class, they're not going to care very much about that at all. They're going to just basically they're going to care more about how you operate and how you present yourself. If you feel like maybe you don't have as much skill as other people that you consider paragons, like you don't have the athleticism that some of them have and things like that. The way you get to Paragon and Rising Wind still can be through role play and class portrayal and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's generally understood that it's not part of the orders of battle then. So really, I think it's more like our culture is still settling right on orders of battle and Paragon and how they're related to each other. Some kingdoms have shifted to the way the Rising Winds has, where it's much more combat based. But I would say that there's still a significant number of people that do expect the next order of battle, even though that's maybe not why they got their Paragon, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like I don't know. It's going to be one of those things that I think it's going to take a while to settle down. So
Culturally, there's some expectation that I think is being developed there that leads to interesting discussions and questions about how things are going to get run long term. So we'll have to see how that shakes out as a kingdom. Um, at the same point, what's the difference between a battle master and a battle knight?
the mentorship really is the big thing, and also depends on first of all it depends on if they're a knight already. If they're not already. I know in the Rising Winds, it's kind of like a given. As long as they're still a knight,
Mm-hmm.
then it's kind of like this is just the next step for them. They are going to get it. But the reason one of the reasons why I mean this could really gets into knighthood itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's like knighthood, and then there's like the specific paths of each knighthood when it comes to really considering somebody, in my opinion. So it's whether or not they're going to be somebody that can mentor other people, whether or not they're somebody that is approachable and can talk to people and
Okay.
about random things about what they know and help other people. I know Sir Boots' daughter just did a thing where she was trying to ask knights, name three things that you think are, basically name knighthood in 3 words. And mine was pay it forward,
Mm.
because really that's what it's about. Is if you can, there people put in lots of volunteer hours to make sure your games and you know, your
Right.
your your battles are really good. You should be paying that back as well. In fact, I think reaving really is a big indication too of a battle knight too. Is if that battle master can step aside and help run the games that everybody's enjoying and that they enjoyed, especially the competitive ones. So once someone gets battle master, I don't need them to run the game, but I would love them to be able to help administer the game, help them because if you're at that point, you should know the rules well enough to be able to no, that's not true. Yes, that's true. Those are all
Mm-hmm.
that's actually displaying basically your mastery of battle gaming through reaving. It's kind of the same. I have the same opinion about Warlord, like for Sword Knight, like they should be reaving kingdom level tournaments because they can see that kind of things. It's easier for them to administer it. So it's the same thing for both, I think that
Okay.
really that's the giving back to the community in some way is like the biggest thing. How they do it sometimes can be differ. Some people are not as outgoing. Like I'm obviously a very outgoing person, but like some people are very introverted. It's hard for them to talk to new people sometimes. And I think that's fine if they want to be a knight, as long as they're still doing some effort to give back to the community about how how they were treated and how they were able to get their awards, because they did. Everyone
Right.
got here through other people and through a journey through volunteers, and they need to be able to volunteer their time too.
Okay. Um, could you give maybe another example or two besides reaving battle games of things that Battle Knight aspirants could be doing to give back to the community?
Um, I mean, like letting other people shine, giving other people chances to lead teams. Sometimes, like, hey, what do you think we should do? Hey, what do you do? You want to run a small squad over there and do this thing? Like, really like helping those people, other people shine in battle gaming and helping them, you know, because winning obviously is a lot of fun, but
Mm-hmm.
like everybody having fun is usually a lot more fun. In fact, there's a really cool thing that happened. I know I'm gonna bring up some surveys that happened a while ago that people uh, for the V9 team. So there was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
surveys, right? I got to
Yep.
see all the information about the surveys, and one of the key takeaways I took from that was that people really emphasized small moments where they have little victories than they had over the overall victory. They don't remember if they won or lost a big game. They remember what they did during that game, or cool moments that happened where they got defeated or they won a small
Mm.
encounter, like the way that they took a flag or the way the flag was taken from them by like some weird like barbarian ball that just barbarian teleport bomb that just popped on top of them. Like, oh shit, that was cool. Like, oh, we got rolled by that. Like we should versus and then there's the time where like you tell your team to go and they all rush in and you're able to like do some clutch move to help them pick a flag. Those are the moments people like, and
Yeah.
those are the moments that really people remember, and that's actually how you get better at the game, is through those moments. And so giving other players those opportunities to be able to make those cool uh, encounters is a really good for retention, like helping people like
Mm-hmm.
want to continue battle gaming, but also helps them shine themselves. So
Absolutely. Okay. What does your training regiment look like? What do you do to keep your nightly battle gaming status level up?
play the game whenever I can. I try to play at my park level whenever I can. I still play. I try out new classes all the time. Like right now, with all the changes and all the archetypes,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really playing a lot of monk. I played anti paladin, which I played anti paladin to 6 and then dropped it immediately. I've actually enjoyed though playing infernal quite a bit. Obviously, I like spell balls though, so there's the whole
Right.
thing there. But the dragoon type of archetype where you've got the pole arm and you've got the spells and stuff like that was really cool. And for me, like when I think about like being competitive, like for like say if I'm thinking about Bridge Wars coming up,
Mm-hmm.
literally practicing the spells out loud that I make sure that I pick up.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of times where like word salad in the middle of like a high intense thing. So the only way to do it is the same thing I do for singing, which is you just gotta practice. So I play caster above all other classes. I think mainly like when it
Mm-hmm.
comes, especially when it comes to competitive environments. So that's the thing that I really got to concentrate on.
Okay. What would you say your favorite class is right now?
My favorite class to play right now is Wizard,
Okay.
100%. I'm playing Healer right now as well. I really like Healer. I like the Healer changes actually. I think that Necromancer is a little bit busted currently with Undead Minion and Raised Dead, but I really like the class in general because there's a lot of versatility of how you can play Healer that I didn't really understand until I really started playing it a couple years ago. I say a couple years ago. I played Healer before that. I played Healer V6 and V7. It's just not as much as I have recently, which is like
You just
all the
hadn't
time.
circled back around yet.
Yeah. And then my next, actually, like the next class that I like the most is actually Monk. I've
Really?
liked Monk for a really long time. I play it off and on whenever I can. It's kind of always been bad since V6. It's never been like that good. It's always just been like, yeah, this is cool. Especially with me being a highly athletic person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like getting in there and fighting is really cool, and being able to be immune to spells, which is one of the most powerful things in Amtgard, right? Is verbal spells.
Oh yeah.
So, but obviously with the prevalence of armor, especially in the Rising Winds, it's a class that's really hard to play at that level, considering how many people are wearing armor, either magical or physical.
Right.
And unless you have that kind of team of support, it's just kind of meh.
Well, and at like Kingdom level where you're playing Bridge Wars or even just random June event, that's going to be a rough matchup for. I mean, you are a sword knight, so I would expect you to be able to 0 to 6 the 6 point warrior there, but.
Yeah, but like we've had this conversation. I know we have had this conversation before, Callum, but I'll say it out loud. I'd rather play a caster that has the same weapons, like literally like the same. Like I'm not gonna like polearm with notwithstanding, but short swords, best weapon in the game. You can use it as a wizard, as a healer, as a bard, as a druid, and when you can threaten that same athleticism and skill, playing those classes, it's just way like Bridge Wars. There's several times where like I really didn't have any verbals to cast right now. Either like there was just no time, or there's like I just needed to get in there. And me as a wizard with a single short being able to threaten the flanking shoulder shots, like it stopped flanks sometimes. The little armored person could not push in because I was there as well, and I could hit them. And like monk, I wouldn't have any range. Support, and then I have that, but so that's why it's just like not the same, right? It's I think that the new changes the monk are really good, which is why I've been started playing it again.
Sure.
Medium monk is really cool support build. It reminds me of a good mix of the healer and the monk a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely have way less utility, but the things you do have are good. So I hope we continue with those types of directions. Like if we're going to take a class that has no armor, you got to give it something. You can't just rely on warlords playing it. That's kind of stupid. So
yeah, that's fair. When you do play, you said Wizard was your favorite class right now. When you are playing Wizard at those competitive events at Bridge Wars and June event and Kingdom stuff, what's your bread and butter? What are you going through, or for your spells? What are you taking archetypes? What are you doing with that?
So unless my team wants to go like a full ball wizard, which I think is with a well-supported team with enough pages to pick up your balls and bring them back to your base. And that's the key there. You have to have enough people that can grab them, and the field has to be such that they can get in there and actually do it. If it's too small, they're just going to be too close to people. They're not going to be able to grab them.
Right.
Spellball Wizard is the best in those types of events. Then after that, I think that the generals list is still the best, which is spellballs, good verbals, and you have everything available to you. Battle Mage can be good. Battle Mage is a good support build, especially if you're supporting armor, because you can take a lot of mens, you can take releases and greater mens, and you can do all that stuff while moving, which means you can stay out of range of casters and come in to finish the release, and you finish the mens as you do it to make sure that you can stay in and out, which makes you slippery against all the other ranged people trying to target you.
Yep.
And you still have access to wounding, and you still have access to finger death if you want to do any type of shenanigans with that. Depends on how fast the thing is working. But the general's ball wizard, fireball, sphere annihilation, and lightning bolt are always good. It doesn't even matter what class you throw it against. People talk about anti-paladin being more prevalent. You still destroy their armor. You still destroy their weapons unless they have flame blade on. The flame blade is something you'll want to dispel anyways. So it's just kind of like I remember Bridge Wars, I think it was 2 years ago, where there was 3 anti-paladins fielded against us in the front line, all with flame blade, and my first reaction was just to fireball each one in the chest. It's like your torso armor's gone, they die to anything, right? Like it's really powerful versus the verbal wizard, which what you have against an anti-paladin, right? You can only you can wound them, which is good, but still you can probably only took one, and you have 3 of them. Whereas a spell ball you can just do, and you have a lot more throughput, and then you still have the utility through verbals. I still have wounding, I still have those things. I just can't do it while moving. But like in a Bridge War scenario where I'm not going to have to move as often, it doesn't make sense to have Battle Mage, to be honest. It makes sense to have those powerful spell balls. So.
I a little bit disagree with you. Specifically at the last Bridge Wars. At the last Bridge Wars, spell balls just were deeply suboptimal.
So?
The fields so at the last Bridge Wars, for anyone who wasn't there were 3 Bridge Wars games all happening, and all of the fields were touching. And so even though my team had brought pages to collect arrows and collect spell balls, it was impossible to get spell balls. If you were in the middle, it was just flat impossible. And if you were on either side, the side that shared with the middle, if you had a spell ball go in that area, it was almost impossible to recover. I had all 6 ice balls, the Sphere of Annihilation, and I ended up being able to recover maybe 3 spell balls throughout the course of a 10-minute game. Just because the the line is right here, and unless you can really shove people off that line, you're not getting anything back. And even if you do shove people off the line, the spell balls tended to either get kicked or trampled off, and then you lose track of them too quickly. As opposed to the Bridge Wars the year before, generalist spell ball build was just amazing because there was enough room on the sides of the field to gather spell balls and equipment back out. So I think it really heavily depends on how cramped the field is. If your spell balls can be recovered easily and safely, how relevant they're going to be.
I think that only applied to the middle lane though, because the side lanes you still have the outside, which people could then retrieve all this spell equipment, and that would mean that you would be on the outside firing in for your enter a different lane. And for me, I didn't really. So here's the thing: I never threw my spell balls beyond the front line.
Sure.
I only threw them at the people in front of us, which means it dropped. Because it almost never, like, sometimes they did, but like for the most part they hit something and went down. So that meant that all we had to do was push forward for me to get the spell balls, as opposed to like wondering where they are back.
Yeah.
Among all the people.
I tend to target the healers. I was trying to target the backline support casters more with my ice balls, and that probably was a mistake for that field. And I only ran for that first middle game in the middle row with the generalist, and then I switched to a more verbal heavy build, leaning a lot more into shove and wounding, because that just felt more relevant to be able to try to get people off the line. That was also the first event where we had people able to charge back up to full, and that is a very interesting alteration to the rule set that really made a big difference, I think.
Yeah, I had 2 woundings and 2 dispels during those for the first time.
Absolutely.
And that felt really good when I was able to do it back to back, and then I almost always had enough downtime to be able to charge times 3 for each of those. So
yeah, absolutely, big game changer there.
Interesting. Something that I started doing the last like 5 or 6 years, by the way, when it comes to support classes, like you want to make sure the support classes can't do their job. The only support class that you really can interact with very well is when a healer can summon dead back pretty far. And you're like, well, I want to stop them. Well, that's really hard to do unless you can actually charge them, especially as a caster, right?
Right.
You let the assassins or people who can flank, or if I have an extension to do something weird, then yes. But like, I almost never take Finger of Death. I almost never take pre-refresh abilities. So that means I don't have very many options against them other than Breakcon. But like, Breakcon stops them for 10 seconds if I still can't get to them.
Right.
So, more often now, especially now that I play healer, right? If you ever spirit them, they have to then come forward 20 feet to be able to release them. And then as a healer, I can usually recharge the Sever Spirit before they can get in range, and then cast that, and then cast Summon Dead, and then Sever Spirit them again. So you just kind of lock that person down to make them have to like do something. But when it comes to not the healer, or either support classes or whatever, if the healer is just there ready to release people, right? Like that's what you're concerned about. CC the people in front of you, because what happens is they have to walk forward to do their thing. So they were being safe. They're in the back somewhere. They're staying like 5 to 10 feet away from their team, trying not to be in the line of fire and stuff, and they're trying to like keep themselves up, watching everyone in front of them. This person says they're frozen. They must walk up.
Right.
And you know that if you just froze that person, that's the response. Is that person's going to come up. So now you can target them.
Yeah.
You don't need to go back. You are literally bringing them forward by targeting the people in front of you.
Makes
good
sense.
It's just kind of like, that's why I was like, I started doing that more often and just paying attention to all the support classes or wizards or healers or whoever can release it's nearby, and then start targeting like, it's ice ball this person, hold the next ice ball to that. That says them as they come forward and they're right there. And then like I've chained ice balled that way. Like it's like ice ball this person, support class comes forward, chain ice ball them, wait for the next support class to release that person. And just do that over and over again, and it's so many times. I try to do it every time. Sometimes I don't get it. Obviously, I'm not perfect, but like when I do get it, it just feels so good. You're like, 3 people frozen in a row, and none of them can release them.
That's when you got them right there.
So, because I used to overextend. Like I used to be known for overextending too much, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it wouldn't, because I would be going after support classes and try to shut down their backline and things like that.
Sure.
I was known for wizard and druid teleporting to the backline and things. But then recently I realized that it's actually way better this way because you're locking down people in the front line, which means your frontliners can then go forward, and then at the same time you're still looking to disrupt the support classes, but you're making them get out of position. So.
Right. Okay. Cool. When you are looking at a battle game, how do you evaluate a battle game?
From like perspective of like how do we win?
Yeah. How do you break down to make your plan, your strategy for your battle games?
The first thing is like how many different how do we have to split ourselves up? Do we have to split ourselves up? It's always like a question. Like it's like you have 3 nodes. They're like spread out so far. Here's the timers for the nodes. Like this is a generic node battle game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like they have like the terrain set up a specific way. There's some really weird rules. Do we need to just control 2 nodes? Can we control 1 node and harass the other 2?
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the types of questions that is going to matter a lot. Do you even need to do that? Like, is this just a survive game, really? And like, can we just kill the enemy team and then take all the nodes? Like, it's like when you have a node battle where it's like capture and hold it for amount of time, you want to be contesting the nodes as much as possible and things like that. But depending on death timers, you could just kill the enemy team first and ignore the nodes completely, and then go back, grab the nodes, and then you deathmatch again, and then you do it again, and you just do it that way. A lot of smaller games that people make at park games, that's what ends up being the case. Like, I always run into node games where it's like capture all 3 nodes and you win. Like once there's a 30-second timer for each node. Well, there's no reason to touch the nodes until everyone on the enemy team is dead.
Right.
Because if you are doing this, you're now if it was 7v7, 10v10, you're making it less than that.
You're down a person.
At the advantage. You might as well push in and kill, and then once you have a more than 50% advantage, then maybe pull back and make 1 or 2 people start counting flags immediately. Kill the last people, come back, count the last one, and then the people that counted these flags can come forward and help you get the last flag cap. Those are the types of like generic strategies that over time you realize that like timers are like a big thing. Like that's what you have to pay attention to the most.
Mm-hmm.
What the death timer is, what the timer is to capture things, how fast can someone do things? Because then that means that's how fast you need to respond, or whether or not you just need to kill, or if you just need to do it. If it's fast to do, then you might want to just do it. But if it's slow to do, you want to control the field first. So.
Yeah, makes sense. When you are in a battle game, how do you choose your targets? When you're trying to like pick your VIP target, when you're going to deal with somebody, how are you picking those people out?
So, for me, it's the roadblock. It's like because it really matters sometimes. People in a lot of armor can be just as big as a roadblock as a really good caster, and sometimes a really good caster you can kind of just ignore depending on what's actually happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the caster is kind of just like going around on a flank and killing people on the flank, but that flank actually isn't doing anything, there's no reason for me to go over there and harass him back, right? Unless that flank is collapsing and we're getting like back hacked. But if all he's doing is just killing people over there, but he's never able to actually push into an objective and push into like a thing just because like where he's at is not really important, I'm going to be targeting the people that are actually going after the important things. Like, I'll give an example. So Basan, that was on Yokai during the finals of Bridge Wars, he was on the right, our right flank. He was like one of their only melee. Otherwise, it was Snaps, Twilis, Artie, who was also playing melee, but Artie was staying back a lot more. He was coming forward sometimes, but he was staying back and helping actually heal and support a little bit as a paladin.
Mm-hmm.
But Basan was the person that was like in front, standing there, blocking, taking shots, and doing everything at that right? He literally even though he's got a whole support team behind him that are really good, he is the person that if you take him out, we can push into the support team.
Sure.
Right? Like it's a thing that we can do, and we can try to like disrupt it. But disrupting the support team was very hard because he was right there. So he was my biggest. I was just fireballing his shield, fireballing his armor, like heating his weapon, whatever I could do to make sure that he couldn't stand in the front as much as possible. Like that was like the whole thing, and that's kind of the thing is just like looking for people who can block objectives, and then people who are really good at accomplishing objectives. Those are the people that I go after, and it actually depends on game to game. Some people just don't feel like doing objectives that game. So like saying that I should go after the same person every time is not always the case. I actually look and evaluate almost every time to see who's actually being like the go-getter, basically, and those are the people that I'm going to target basically for the rest of the game, is to make sure that they can try to.
So first, people blocking you from your objective, and then people that are trying to get the counter objective.
Yes, and then I will try to play mind games a little bit with that, and also like act like I don't want to go after the objective and fuck around on a flank for a while, and then start pushing objectives like 10 minutes later.
Start playing those mind games.
So they don't really like think about bothering me basically as much, because it gotta get sucks when you're being targeted by a lot of different people. So
okay, I know how that can go. You know, you start off trying to be a big threat right at the beginning. People are going to remember you're there, and maybe if you step back a little bit, you can fade into the background. Cool. Shifting gears a little bit, what advice would you give someone who aspires to be a battle master? Maybe somebody that's starting out on their battle master journey.
you gotta learn caster classes. It's kind of the way it is. It's the most complicated part of our game, and mastery over that part of our combat is pretty integral to a lot of people when it comes to battle master. I'm not saying that a non-caster, like melee only person, especially now that the archetypes exist, 'cause there's a lot more abilities that they can learn and do things. They could probably do it a little bit better. But learning at least one caster also helps you so much. You understand their pitfalls a lot more. You understand their restrictions. You understand their lists are not infinite. You can call them out when they micro-cheat. There's a whole bunch of things that allow you to have a competitive advantage against casters once you've actually played. Like they can understand how their lists are built and like what their restrictions are. Like, oh, they took all that. They do not have this sort of thing. You know, like there's no way. And if
Right.
they do, you're like, bull. you're like, no way. You do not have 3 swifts. There's no way. Like, there's like a whole thing that you learn by playing the caster classes. And if you're really serious about getting battle master, you got to pick up at least one. I don't really care which one, to be honest. My opinion is wizard because it's probably the most versatile of the 4. But even healer is a really good thing to pick up. And there's a lot more to healer than people realize, even offensive. So.
Okay. What can take an okay player and make them better? Let's say we have someone that's just okay at casting, they're okay at melee. How can they get beyond just that okay state to start approaching excellence?
It's so funny because this answer is the same the advice that I give for people that are looking for like warlord and sword knight. You got to stop doing inaction. You got to get used to doing something. Basically, it's like the idea here that you get comfortable, like you're like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. Okay, I did it. And what's the next step? But that decision should have already been made, or should be made much more quickly. Often I see decisions being made too slowly, is what the problem is. This applies to pretty much all combat, is your combat computer needs to get faster and faster for you to actually start elevating yourself. And you're going to make wrong decisions. You're like, oh shit, I haven't even done that. Like, why did I do that? You know, like, that was horrible. I just died, you know? That happens, but the more you do it, it's just like you practicing an instrument. It's just like you practicing riding a bike. The more you do a thing, doing tricks on a bike, right? Doing tricks on like a skateboard, the more you do the thing, you're going to mess up, but you're also going to get used to what paths work, and then you're going to be able to do them more quickly. Your brain starts wiring this into that, this into that. Like you know, the whole person into drag below. So it's just a simple combo. But you have to be able to practice it to get to the point where you're like, this into that. Like, you don't think about, oh, now I need to cast drag below. You just cast the drag below because you realize that's the next thing you need to do. Or ice ball into shatter. Like, there's a whole bunch of things there that as you get used to doing those things over and over again, you start doing them more often. But you have to practice it. You have to think about it. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try it out. And it might not work. A person might, like, inborn or, like, they get released before you can do the second part, whatever the case is. But you'll get used to it and get better at doing it and over time. And that, I think, will really help elevate your game. So.
All right. I've got a couple of knight-specific questions. I already asked you the difference between a battle knight and a battle master, so I think we'll skip that one, and we'll say, can you tell me a little bit about what your knighting ceremony was like when you became a battle knight?
So mine was the grouped one. So my first knighthood, right, was for Serpent. That was in 2015. In 2022. Yeah, I think it's 2022. Yeah, 2022 is when I got my 4 other knighthoods. Because, like, kind of over COVID, and also at the end or beginning of COVID, I already was at like 8 or 9 in a lot of my different paths, and I kind of like finished those over the course of the end of 2020 into 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I already had some master codes, but then I got my last 3 master codes in that time period. So it was decided that I would get everything all at once. So I didn't really have a battle master knighthood, right? Like I kind of got it on with my master, my crown knight and my sword knight and my flame knight. Like those all came all at the same time. So
you had a buy one get 3 free coupon for knighthood, right?
Yeah, yes. And it was a really cool ceremony. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. They had somebody from each aspect talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
So for Raven was the one that spoke for my sword, and then Smurf was the one that spoke for my battle. So, and there are 2 people that are in my fighting company, and they also are very good. I mean, Smurf's one of the people that inspired me to probably really push battle gaming when I came back to the Rising Winds after I got out of the Navy. He's the one that like always was like a really good strategist and a person that I really looked up to for what do I do? What do you want me to do, Smurf? Is like like what do you want me to do? He's the one that directs me a lot of the times. So so that I think was the coolest for them to say like really words about me and then about my path and things I'd done. So yeah.
Cool. All right. What are things that you are currently doing to help mentor battle gaming and try to bring up battle gaming in the Rising Winds more?
So it's been a bit because I was doing it for a long time a couple of years ago, especially before COVID. Reading a lot. I'm a walker in the middle, and because I really enjoy making sure that games run well. I've seen a lot of games not run well. Like it's one of the reasons why I started designing games too for my Master Smith is just I want to make sure that people are having a good time and that the rules are fair and that people feel like the outcome was fair, right? That's like one of my biggest focuses, and I think that really helps other people as well. And also when it comes to just I love sharing knowledge with people, like all the kind of crazy mind game stuff that I kind of sometimes do in the field. I love telling people like exactly how it works and like why it worked. Because I want other people to try to do it too and come up with some crazy stuff. I love it when people come to me and say, look at this. Look what you can do. And it's like, oh, that's awesome. Like I love to have that type of stuff. So encouraging people about that all the time. Like the whole, like you're casting Dimensional Rift on an assassin that's not in sub yet because they will often just shadow step in response to you casting anything about them. That stuff like that is just like, like that's the kind of stuff that I live for, and I want other people to enjoy it as well.
Oh, that's great.
It's one of I've got almost every my goal is to get somebody in every kingdom. And I think I've got 7 so far. 8 people. It's just
in every individual kingdom you're trying to do for them.
Every time I go to a different kingdom, like I go to different kingdom events. Like I did it in the Desert Winds, Golden Vale, Crystal Groves, Rising Winds, Polaris.
Oh wow!
The Polaris woman was not happy at all. Like as soon as I did it, she's like, "That's not how that works." I'm like, "No, it is. I'm sorry." Like,
because it only cares at the end if they're actually insubstantial still. So you can.
So like there's just stuff like that, like teaching people, like making sure people are having fun too, like because I do that, but then I try not to hyper focus people. The only time I would ever do that is a Bridge Wars or like this is a competitive game that we want to win. But if it's just like a normal Kingdom game, even if it's like Keep where it was kind of competitive for a while, maybe we got points and stuff like that, I always want to try to make sure the games are fair, make sure the games are fun, and I'm willing to back off and do something else or do something crazy that's fun for me too, as long as I'm not hurting the enjoyment of other people. So I think that's really important. Like that's probably one of the most important things you can do, because if you want people to play with, you got to make it enjoyable for them to play. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How do you go about adding new people to your belt line? What is your belt line philosophy? Because I know you've got a ton of people that are associated with you, myself included. Tell us about that philosophy, specifically in regards to your battle belt.
So, I try to find, obviously, for battle belt, the biggest thing I'm looking for is people who are obviously trying to be better at the game itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, example for you, I could tell you the first time I met you was at a random Elk Glen, right, like Tark Day,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was like Lock Haven like day event or something there, right, or something.
I think
Or it was a
yeah,
meetup you
something
guys.
like that.
I forget, but I remember seeing you, and it's like casters. Like seeing a decent caster is actually kind of rare, especially for a player that I'd never seen before. I was like, oh, hey, who is this person?
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, really, what I was looking for was, are you doing things like how are you doing things and how you're approaching things? Are you a competitive person? Really, that's
Mm-hmm.
what it is. Like, if you're not already a competitive person, it's going to be hard for me to mentor you into being a competitive person because do you even want to do that? Do you even want to be a competitive person? What's the whole point? If you're
Right.
telling me that you're going for Battle Master but you're not competitive, it's kind of like that's kind of non-starter. You kind of have to be at least a little bit competitive, be able because that competitive drive is what helps you get better at it. So I saw you had a little bit more competitiveness than the rest of your people at your park, and also I enjoy a really good wizard. So like I was like, oh yeah, this will probably work out nicely. So it's kind of the same thing for all my other paths though. It's just like I pick up people who are obviously like they're really interested in something else that I can help them with, like they're singing or like crown stuff or like actually running parks and running things like that as the big thing or Smith, which is the other thing that I really concentrate on the most.
Mm-hmm.
And if I see them already attempting to do good things, I kind of had that conversation with them, like, do you want to do more? Do you want what do you want to do? What's your end goal with this? So,
Yeah.
and then after that conversation, and I have to be able to be friends with them too. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you can be a mentor to somebody that you can't be friends with in a LARP game like this. This is not medieval knighthoods where your squire you treat them like trash and then like that's horrible. So yeah.
Cool. So obviously you're very friendly and approachable, but is it okay for people who've seen this video to come up and ask you questions at events?
100%. Yes.
Awesome. Do you have any final advice or recommendations before we hop off the call here?
Ooh, I was thinking about this earlier, and then I think I forgot what I was going to actually say.
That's usually how it goes.
It happens every once in a while. I think my final advice is something I said earlier, which is just, like I said, Sir Boots' daughter, um, like she had a really good. It made me think about this. Like, what do I think is the most enduring quality of a knight? If I wanted to pick a quality that was like every knight, please have this thing,
Mm-hmm.
pay it forward. And you can do that without being a knight. You can just like there's so many people doing so many great things in this game. Like our game would not exist without the countless hours, money, and time that are just people have put into Amtgard.
Mm-hmm.
Our organization is a full volunteer organization, except for we pay our lawyer, I think, because we kind of have to, But everyone else, the whole board of directors, despite how they're doing, despite how your board of directors is doing in your kingdom, despite how your monarchy is doing, there's still people that are, for the most part, trying really hard to help you and have made this game where it is today, which is still really, really good, really fun to play. And it's crazy that we have so many people playing the game, so many people that are passionate about the game, that we have 23 kingdoms now. Like, all these things are just absolutely incredible. And if you want to contribute to that, to make sure that, 10 years from now, we can say it's better than it was today, you have to pay that time forward somehow. And you don't have to do crappy things. You don't have to shovel crap out of the bathroom. You don't have to do things like that. But thinking about the things that you do well and the things that you can do to contribute to that, just think about it. Like, what can you do that's can really make your local game and your local kingdom and your local group better? And I think if everyone does that, we can just have a much better game. So.
All right. Well, thank you to Sir Manama for coming on to our show here. Please, if you enjoyed this and you made it all the way to the end, subscribe. I'm going to be coming out with a lot more content in the next couple of weeks here. Get down in the comments if you have any questions. We'd love to get a chance to follow back up. If you want to see more of Manama, give the video a like, and I'll see if I can't get him to come on the show again sometime.
I would love to.
Awesome. All right.